Good afternoon, Musketeers. It's April 13th, 2018. I'm Daniel Stenger.
And I'm Ivana Dias. This is Xavier News.
From the Xavier University Television Studio, this is Xavier News. Your campus, your region, your world. This is Xavier News.
The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons says it has confirmed the UK's findings on the identity of the poison used against a former Russian spy and his daughter last month. The International Watchdog's report yesterday also noted that the toxic chemical has, quote, almost complete absence of impurities. Based partly on this high purity, the UK has concluded that only a state actor could have carried out the attack on Sergei and Yulia Skripal in Salisbury. British authorities have explicitly identified the substance as Novichok, a military-grade nerve agent developed in the Soviet era and intimately associated with Russia. In recent weeks, British authorities, along with roughly 24 countries involved, including the U.S., have expelled scores of Russian diplomats in retaliation for the attack.
Hundreds of National Guard members from Texas and Arizona are gathering at the U.S.-Mexico border barely a week after Donald Trump first publicly mentioned the possibility of deployment. We still don't know how many troops will end up there, what exactly they'll be doing, or why they're needed at a time when border crossings are way lower than they have been in past decades. Trump administration officials defend the lack of detail about the Guard by saying they don't want to tip off the drug and human smugglers they're trying to disrupt, but the mobilization of the National Guard to the border does not appear to be the results of careful planning. The order signed does not let the soldiers interact with the immigrants at all. It said that the National Guard would not, quote, perform law enforcement duties or interact with migrants or other persons detained by U.S. personnel, end quote. Many people speculate that deploying the National Guard to the border isn't permanent, but rather a way to scare people out of trying to enter the U.S. until Congress can figure out a more effective solution.
For some campus news, Alternative Breaks is an organization on campus that sends students on service learning projects while school is out of session.
Sam Flesh has more with the story.
Alternative Breaks is a program here at the Center for Faith and Justice at Xavier University. We are a service immersion trip experience, and so what that means is that we're not a mission trip. We are not sending students to go complete a mission in various different neighborhoods and communities. We're educating students, and we're asking that students learn about advocacy and allyship and diversity and social justice. And so Alternative Breaks, yes, we send 21 trips in the spring. They're all focused on different social justice issues. And throughout the year with Alternative Breaks, you educate yourself. Leaders are educating their participants about a specific social justice topic, and they're more prepared to go on the trip itself. And then after the trip, there's even more involvement and more focus on how you can bring back what you've learned on the specific trip.
I think the way that Alternative Breaks decides which trips to send in a given year has one part to do with our history and relationships. I think part of AB is like our ongoing relationships with some communities that we have visited since the beginning of the program. There are some places we've gone to for 15 years, and it's really beautiful to protect and nurture those relationships and feel like there's something reciprocal going on. And I think another exciting piece is that because it's student-led, there's always new energy coming in as we select new leaders. And so we do often explore 3 to 5 new trips during the summer months and kind of come back to school with a sense of which trips we will pursue that year.
One thing that I would like to tell everybody about Alternative Breaks is that this is just a program that has the capacity to change your life in ways that you can't begin to predict prior to going on the trip. And although it can be a emotional, physical, and spiritual wild ride while you're on the trip, it is absolutely worth it in the long run, and the experiences that you will bring back to Cincinnati and the new perspectives and viewpoints that you have, they are absolutely earth-shattering and some of the greatest things that you could experience while at Xavier.
I think Alternative Breaks is looking more long-term at how educating students can actually have an impact on their views and how they see the world and how they teach others about issues at hand or issues in their local and global community.
President Donald Trump has told top economic advisors to look at the possibility of re-entering a massive Pacific trade deal, the White House said yesterday. The president has asked Chief Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer to consider trying to rejoin the Trans-Pacific Partnership, according to White House spokeswoman Lindsay Walters. He wants them to, according to Walters, quote, take another look at whether or not a better deal could be negotiated. Earlier, Senators Pat Roberts and Ben Sasse said the president had informed lawmakers about his directive. The senators were among those from agricultural states who met with Trump yesterday about the White House's proposed tariffs on China, which farmers worry would lead to retaliation that would hurt their businesses. Trump withdrew from the agreement last year as one of his first acts in office. After the meeting, Sasse told reporters that the 12-nation trade deal agreed to by President Barack Obama and abandoned by Trump would be the single best way to counter alleged Chinese trade abuses.
Meanwhile, here at Xavier, a recent slew of bias incidents have lit up campus. On April 4th, the Bias Advisory and Response Team, or BART, held a forum in Bellarmine Chapel aimed to address the incidents. Taj Smith, the director of the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, or the CDI, said that the organization wanted a higher turnout. He said, quote, we had mostly about 50 people present, mostly black students and other students of color. I would definitely love to grow that, end quote. One question raised at the forum concerned the lack of the information regarding the consequences for the perpetrators of the incidents. An idea that came up was creating a benchmark with a list of what could happen if you perform something hateful towards another person or group. For more information regarding these bias incidents, you can visit the BART website.
A local high school teacher, Mark Guzman, passed away after sustaining injuries from being hit by a drunk driver.
Connor Dermody has more with the story.
Mr. Guzman was a very generous, giving man, but yet he was also forgiving. He was so humble and such a very good friend, a mentor for me.
Mr. Guzman was an extraordinary person. He cared for others all of his life. He never once really was very selfish.
He was kind. He was humble. Had a very gentle demeanor, I would say. He was a guy that was extremely approachable.
He really never had like a negative aspect in life. He always made always negative into a positive.
He was more of a role model, sort of like an image that we should follow. I mean, yeah, he was also a teacher, but I feel like more so being almost like, I guess, a picture of what an elder man should be.
It's kind of been hard, you know. You don't really know like how quick someone can like be gone out of your life until this happens.
Yeah, the students and staff at Elder, as far as Mark's loss, you know, initially they were taking it pretty tough. It was just an empty feeling as you walked around, especially here in the Shaper Center where his classroom was. You know, you walked by and you didn't see Mark there.
Mr. Guzman has definitely left behind a legacy that will be here forever. He's irreplaceable. I mean, I miss him, the school misses him, but I think his wisdom is something that will be around forever, and I think the teachers will continue to pass on what we've learned from him.
Next Wednesday, March 14th, the city of Cincinnati, during the Cincinnati City Council meeting, they are going to pass a resolution to rename Vincent Avenue out here near Elder High School. It's going to be a secondary street renaming, so Vincent Avenue will keep the name. However, it's also going to have the name Mark Guzman Way.
In my mind, I mean, he was the model of what a Christian man should be, a Christian person should be, because he focused on social justice, and he lived a life of service to others. Truly compassionate man.
In other local news, Cincinnati Police Chief Elliot Isaac is launching an internal investigation, and a 911 dispatcher is on administrative leave following the death of 16-year-old Kyle Plush, a Seven Hills High School student. At a news conference yesterday, Isaac said, quote, "This was a horrific tragedy. What I say is we share in their heartbreak around this. Police officers, firefighters, and even our emergency personnel. You get into this because you want to help, and something went very wrong here." Plush died Tuesday after calling 911 twice between 3 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. He said he was stuck inside his van. After a nearly 3-minute call, the line went dead. The dispatcher tried to call Plush back, but it went to voicemail. A police car was dispatched, but the officers were unable to locate the vehicle since they didn't have a description. Plush called 911 again and got a different dispatcher. Isaac says that woman, Amber Smith, did not forward the description of the Honda Odyssey van to officers. Plush died sometime after 3:30 and was not found until nearly 9 p.m. The Hamilton County Coroner's Office performed an autopsy stating, quote, "Preliminary autopsy findings are asphyxia due to chest compression. This rules the death accidental," and the statement also said there's no indication of foul play or evidence of a drug overdose.
This past Tuesday, CEO Mike Zuckerberg testified about the privacy of Facebook in front of a joint hearing with 2 Senate committees. Among the crowd of spectators waiting for Zuckerberg were the members of the activist group Code Pink, wearing oversized sunglasses with the words "Stop Spying" written across them. Another group wore t-shirts with hashtag Delete Facebook scrawled on them in red Sharpie. Zuckerberg came to Congress to answer for a series of scandals that have plagued the company since at least the 2016 election. The first scandal was the news that a Russian propaganda group used Facebook ads, fake accounts, and pages to influence voters in the run-up to the 2016 U.S. election. A more recent scandal was that Facebook's admission that, since 2014, a data firm named Cambridge Analytica received unauthorized access to up to 87 million users' private data without their consent. Contrary to everyone's expectation of a bloodbath, the trial turned into a 5-hour spectacle where Zuckerberg spent most of his time talking about Facebook's terms of service, how advertisers target users, and how Facebook collects and stores its data. Through it all, the young CEO apologized repeatedly for Facebook's mistakes. He said, quote, "I'm so sorry. I started Facebook, I run it, and I'm responsible for what happens here." End quote. People are still waiting for an explanation for what is really going on with their Facebook accounts.
A St. Xavier High School priest has been fired for inappropriate communication with a student, school officials said. Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters said the priest was accused of inadvertently soliciting sex in a text message. The context of that message is unclear. School administrators said they were made aware of the situation on February 15th. Following an investigation, the priest was terminated from the high school on February 23rd. No criminal charges have been filed, and Dieters says he doesn't plan to file charges at this time.
All right, that's all from the news desk, people.
We'll be right back with Paul Fritchner and the Xavier Sports Report.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're having a great day. Do you have a busy week? Because I know at least one person who's had an incredibly busy couple of weeks on this campus, and that's the new men's basketball head coach, Travis Steele. In less than 2 weeks since getting the job, Steele has landed 3 graduate transfers and 2 assistant coaches. He's hit the ground running, and it's really been great to see as a fan. Now, Tuesday night, it was confirmed that Ben Johnson would be leaving the University of Minnesota to come join Xavier's staff as an assistant coach. Johnston has a great pedigree. He's coached at the Division I level since 2006, and he's considered a superb recruiter. Now Johnson, he'll complement Jonas Hayes, who was hired from the University of Georgia last week. Now, both Hayes and Johnson are leaving their alma maters to join Steele's staff, which I think might say something as to the kind of person Steele is and how much people really want to come here and work for him. But in addition to the coaches, Steele has reeled in 3 graduate transfers who will be eligible immediately to play in their final year of college basketball next season. Zach Hankins, he's from Ferris State, Division II National Player of the Year. He's a Musketeer now, as well as Kyle Castlin and Ryan Wellage. And Castlin will provide depth to Xavier's roster, and it'll be interesting to see how he contributes as he comes back from some injuries. Wellage, on the other hand, he's coming across the country to Xavier from San Jose State, where he set the school's all-time three-point record in only 3 seasons there. Xavier really needed a good shooter for next year to kind of stretch the floor, and they went out and got one in the form of Wellage. It will be interesting to see what else Steele does and is able to do in the near future, but as of right now, he's definitely had a good first couple of weeks at the helm. Switching gears a little bit, the baseball team has had some bad luck the past few days. After winning their Big East opener against Georgetown in D.C. last Friday, they lost their next 3 games on walk-offs. 2 of them were against Georgetown, and then 1 was against Miami of Ohio. This Wednesday, they suffered a loss to Wright State, and now this weekend, they'll be in South Orange, New Jersey, for a 3-game set against conference foe Seton Hall. Now, I won't be able to be with you the next couple of weeks, so it's time for one final Fritchner Friday fun fact of the year. Now, most of you know it's baseball season, and most of you know that visiting teams wear gray in a baseball game. But did you know that it was so easily to distinguish between the visiting team and the home team with the gray uniforms? Now, this tradition of wearing gray uniforms dates back to the late 1800s, when traveling teams did not have time to launder their uniforms, and consequently, they wore gray to hide the dirt. Now you know. Thank you so much for watching today. From everyone here in the studio, enjoy that beautiful weather outside while we have it. I heard it's supposed to snow or something on Monday. Have a great day, a fun weekend, and as always, let's go X.
This is Xavier News.